Welcome back to this video. As you can see by reading through the course material, this is a really important concept where you're going to be doing much formula work in Microsoft Excel. This video is about absolute addressing. In this video, I want to go through two examples of using absolute addressing. Absolute addressing is a really important concept in Microsoft Excel, especially for those people that are doing much formula work. I'm using the sample files as you can download. Also at the bottom of the screen, I'm working on a sheet called pricing. In this example here, we have a list of different products. It shows the regular price of these products. Now these products are going to be discounted by this factor up here by 10%. What I want to be able to do is to find out what the discount is based upon this percentage calculation multiplied by the list price. So I'll be putting in a formula. Now I'm going to put the formula in initially and make a mistake on the formula. And then when I'm finished putting in the formula, I'll copy the formula down. And then I'm going to stop and talk about what absolute addressing is compared to relative addressing. So here's an incorrect formula. I'm in cell C4. I'll start a formula with an equal sign. I'll click in cell B4. I'll multiply that. Then I'll click on the cell that holds the discount percentage, which is in this case is cell F1. And the formula is equal B4 multiplied by F1. I'll click on the check mark to finish off the formula. And I get the answer 3 or $3. And I'll format this into a currency format. Then here's where the problem comes in. I'll take my mouse to the bottom right corner of that cell. I'll get a black cross and drag it down to row 17. And I get a bunch of zeros showing up on here. Now here's what happened. If I go back up to cell C4 and look up on the formula bar, the formula is equal B4, which is correct, multiplied by F1, which is correct, is the 10% discount percentage. If I move down a cell, we know now that Excel automatically changes the address on us when we copy a formula. You can see that this formula is equal B5, which is correct, is the second product's list price, multiplied by F2 when we really want to multiply by F1. Now move down another cell. It is B6, which is the third list price for the product, multiplied by F3, which is down here now. So by default, Excel automatically changes the address on us when we go to copy the formula. And when it does that, that's called relative addressing. It will change the address relative to where you started the copy. Now in this example, I didn't want the F1 part to change. I wanted to lock that in place. So as I copied it down, the next one I wanted to be equal B5 times F1 equal B6 times F1 equal B7 times F1 and so on. I wanted the B4 to change to B5 to change to B6. That's called relative addressing. Again, it'll change the formula relative to where you started the copy. But I didn't want the F1 part to change. I wanted to lock that in place. And to lock that in place, you have to make it absolute. And the way that Excel will recognize in this example that the F1 should not have changed when we copy the formula would be a $ before the F and a $ before the 1. But we're not going to type the dollar signs in. We're going to use a keyboard shortcut for it instead. So I'm going to go back a couple of steps here to remove the formulas from column C. So go undo twice, actually 3 times to change the formatting. I'm now going to put the formula in again, but this time I'll put it in correctly using absolute addressing. So I'm in cell C4, I click equal to start a formula. I'll put B4 into the formula. I'll leave this alone. I want this to change when I copy it. That's called relative addressing. Change the address relative to where I started the copy. I'll multiply it by cell F1. So I'll either click or type F1. I did exactly the same as I did before. But what I want to do now is I want to make the F1 part of the formula absolute. So on my keyboard, at the top of my keyboard are F keys or function keys. On my keyboard or on your keyboard, touch F4. And what that'll do, it'll make the F1 part absolute. $F, $1. Which means when I go to copy the formula, it won't change. So I'll click on the check mark again. I get $3 or 3. I'll change the format again, but I'll use a different format this time. I'll go to the General tab. I'll choose Currency to get a similar format to the one over here. And then I'll go to the bottom right corner of the cell, get a black cross. I could drag down, but I'll double click. And what that does this time, it gives me numbers all the way down. And let's understand this. So I'm going back to cell C4 and clicking. Up on the formula equal B4 multiplied by F1. And notice that F1 is absolute. I'll go to cell C5. Same formula sort of, but it changes the B4 to become B5. We want that to happen. Multiplied again by F1. One more time, down in cell C6, multiplied by, up here again, B6 times F1. The F1 part didn't change because we made it absolute, and we made it absolute by touching F4 on the keyboard so that it wouldn't change when we went to copy the formula down. I'm going to try it again. I'm staying in the same file called sample files. I'm going to move to the next sheet at the bottom called percent, and I want to go through another example of using absolute addressing. In this spreadsheet, there's a list of people, their names, their ages, their department, and their salary. And what I want to figure out is what the first person's salary is as a percentage of the total salary. And the total salary is down here in cell E14. So I'll put in a formula, equal sign. I'll put E3 into the formula by clicking. You could also type. I'm going to divide this. That's the slash up on the quick access toolbar. And I'll put the cell that holds the total salary, which in this example is E14. Now, if I were to finish this off and copy it down for the next employee, it would be equal E4 divided by E15, then equal E5 divided by E16. I need to lock this in place so that the E14 part doesn't change. To do that, I'll make it absolute, and on my keyboard again, at the top of my keyboard, I'll touch F4, and that'll put absolute symbols on before the column E and before the row 14. I'll click on the check mark to finish off the formula and get the answer decimal 0.5. I'll format this into a percent symbol by clicking on the percent button up on the ribbon. I'll move to the right of percent. I'll click on increase decimal twice to get 5.15. I'll now copy this down by going to the bottom right corner of the cell, get a black cross, and double click. And I get answers all the way down. And if I click down here, say in cell F10, look up in the formula bar, the first part changes. The first E part changes to E10 because we left that alone. That left it at the default of being relative addressing. But the E14 part didn't change because we locked that in place. It's always divided by E14 as I click any place else in column F. That's a second example of using absolute addressing. It's a really important concept when you're working inside of Microsoft Excel, especially when you're doing some formulas. It wouldn't be a bad idea at this stage to, once you're finished with this video, to stay in that example files and then go to a different sheet at the bottom called Exercise 1. And you can practice using absolute addressing in this formula, in this spreadsheet. What we want you to do here is to go to cell C5 and put in a formula that will take the number of black and white copies in this spreadsheet and multiply it by the unit price of the black and white copies, which is over in cell J2. And then when you finish that, you want to copy the formula down. And then when you try that again, you can go to cell E5. It shows it gives you a chance to do a calculation to figure out the total cost of color copies for a part of a university or a college. So in this case, again, you're going to be putting in a formula that takes D5 and multiplies it by the price that shows up over in cell J3. And you want to make the J3 part absolute. When you finish doing those calculations, you can check out what the results are by going to the next sheet on the bottom, Exercise 1 results, and that'll show you the actual formula that was used to get the total cost of black and white copies for each area and the total cost of color copies for each area as well. So give those a try. It's always a good idea to practice new things that you've learned.